Okay, and we're back. Just for the record, I entirely went through all the sponsors and realized that I was the only one still part of this thing. So we're gonna go through all those sponsors again. I had a good run the first time. Let's see if I can match it the second time. Okay, so everything that is 3D printed on all of our streams is powered by Griffin Co. So that's who brings you that. All of our digital and audio displays, digital device, and all that sort of stuff is brought to you by Vorpal Board. So that is how you're seeing all of this. As far as other announcements that we have, oh well, one other sponsor that I didn't drop last time was Sirenscape. So all the background music and audio that you hear is through Sirenscape. All those awesome sound effects that Solo played last time. Now, as far as announcements go, we do have our Patreon that is up. So if you'd like to subscribe to that and get various perks such as exclusive races that you may see on some of these shows, Twitch content, that sort of thing. We have a Gain a Level stream coming up on November 20th. It's a 12-hour stream DM by Solo, with the object being to raise money for new streaming equipment. And I believe that information is down in our Twitch chat or on our Twitch channel about all the different things that you can donate versus what you get. We have our shop, which is up on our Fable 42 website. So right now it has our Fable 42 branded merchandise as well as some Wizards stuff. So, run out and get your Frostguard shirt. We have a couple games coming up. I actually asked a question about this and no one answered, and I just kept going. But that's because no one was here. We have 2 games on Saturday coming up, and that is one of which is a celebrity game through the Wounded Warrior project that Solo will be DMing. So far, we know that Louis Anderson and Carrot Top will be part of that, and that'll be at 3 p.m. And then and that'll be on our Twitch channel. And then we have the Fable 42 game with April starting tomorrow as well. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that today as well. So, okay, with that, I still have no idea what I'm doing, and you have nothing better to do. So let's start some Fawks Talks. Do we have that intro now, Cody?
We do, but we don't. So we'll just have to truck along.
Solid. Stay tuned next week when we will debut an intro. Probably. Or two. Or 5. All right, so just as a heads up, you guys might notice some changes from last week's set. I'm now in front of this big, beautiful, sterile wall. Kind of looks like what I'd imagine Rex's garage looks like, minus all the plastic wrap, of course. I'm joking. I love Rex. I'm actually in front of Carrick's Wall of Friendship, where he keeps all the photos of people he likes to be around. But that's new with me. What's going on with you, Cody? What's going on with you this week? Anything?
Just a bunch of prep work for the launch of Vault 42. Been painting all those minis.
Yeah.
Well, base coating. April's doing the painting.
Sure. I've seen some pictures that she's put on Instagram and stuff. It looks super cool. I can't wait to watch it. But speaking of April, so we got a great show lined up for tonight. Sadly, Honker's agent still won't call me back. So, but who we do have is from Realms. We have April, who plays the Air Genasi Kyriel, and we have Eddie, who plays the Tabaxi Rogue Eclipse. So without further ado, let's get into Ronin's recap. Yes, I named it after myself. Yes, I'm a narcissist. Either way, let's take a look at what held this week for Fable 42 campaigns and some of the choices that were made. Okay, so we'll start just like we did last time. We'll go through Monday show and then Wednesday. So we'll start with Legends of Sha'oghol. And they are on episode 4, which is Call for Help. So as the group meets up for breakfast in the dining car, Mata and Daffodil go to continue their chat with Lord Reese and Avis. And we also learn that Oscar will now act as Rex's personal babysitter, sort of like a parole officer for somebody who hasn't committed a crime yet. And then you'll remember from the last time that they basically at this time heard the engine make 3 sort of horn noises, and that basically signaled that there is some issue with the gnome engineer that they had met previously. Jinx takes off like a cat out of hell, alerting the group and carrying her bagpipe wielding marsupial backpack, and they are followed quickly by the others. They all make their way there to find that the gnome is overcome with some strange affliction. The gnome's skin is wet, blue, almost translucent. He's bloated with eyes bulging, and basically looks like a CSI body that they found washed up on a shore. And I'd like to think that this is because the gnomes did not unionize. They have zero worker rights. Rex invades his personal space of the gnome, finds a growth on his collarbone, and Rex decides to go full Dr. House with an unconsented tracheotomy. No one reacts, to the point where Diane actually has to say, is everyone just going to let Rex cut into this guy's throat? Which is fantastic. So anyway, yeah, Rex cuts into the guy's throat, removes what he believes is a runic rock, and then he sews him back up. And then Jinx, who I think now is the main healer of the party, pours vodka into the wound. Frizz tried to get more information from the gnome that was going to be taking over for the injured gnome, but that gnome basically says, thanks weirdo, now piss off, and Frizz is forced to follow his extinct friends because he wants to keep everyone together. So they head back to the bar car, where Rex starts to study the rock. Daffodil sees this as a prime opportunity to start out her new genre of music, and ended up making some gold, even after paying her manager Mata. And let me just say, as a person who went to Billy Bob's a lot as a kid, I truly appreciate this possum with a trash guitar. All that's missing is that one sort of blinky eye that's out of sync. You know what I'm talking about? Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Also, Jinx drinking random bits of alcohol that she finds while shouting at the possum is the most West Virginia thing I've ever seen. Literally, I've seen it. I miss you, Grandpa. Anyway, Rex, after studying the rock for a bit, tells the group that he believes the elemental forces are upset at someone or something, possibly has ill will towards the trains, or its occupants. Jinx and Daffodil want more information and come up with an absolutely brilliant plan to pretend to be drunk and sneak off. However, drunk Jinx, pretending to be more drunk than she actually is, fails to convince the others that she's actually drunk. And they're followed. It should also be noted at this time that Rex does mention that he has a sample of their hair, so do with that what you want. I'm just saying, it's all right there. They try and... yeah, okay. I'm glad that Solo stepped away so he doesn't have the sound effects. Anyway, they try and fail to access the rooms of the sleeper car. And when I say fail, I think they failed. If their mission was to scare the crap out of an old lady, then in that case, they were very successful. The old lady did get revenge, though, as she outstrengthed Jinx and managed to shut the door. Afterwards, they see their friends, and the two decide to play dead. Jinx plays dead, and then presumably passes out and has to be dragged back to her bed, which, funny enough, also reminds me of my grandpa. So everyone else regroups in the bar car. Rex tries to slip out and do some secret praying. However, Frizz insists that Rex stay. So he does, but not before prepping everyone in the car. Nothing says, completely fine holy ceremony like in a little unsolicited prayer. Mata and Daffodil go to speak with Lord Rice, and Avis once again. But not before Mata goes over her attorney-client privilege with Daffodil, which, to be honest, was like explaining physics to my 5-year-old. But Mata and Daffodil do get a bit more information from Avis about the potential party in Athcross, and that they've been invited to. They also get a bit more insight into Lord Reese and his troubles within the kingdom. By this time, Jinx has returned and Reese has passed out. And so since Reese has broke the first rule of sleepovers, they do the only sensible thing and put his hand in a cup of warm water and await the results. After this, Jinx and Frizz now find seek out and find the recovering gnome, which they now know his name is Wilvin. Unable to talk, but communicating through parchment, thanks the group for saving them and gives them what little info he had regarding the incident. The most important bit of which was, and I quote, "I felt it enter me." That night, the last night before arriving in Athcross, is filled with terrors. Jinx deals with internal struggles as Rex awakens to speak with a shadow in the corner of his room. After arriving in Athcross, they meet a young elvish woman named Yolosa. I'm going to say Yolosa, who's been asked by the king to show them around and make sure they get settled in a tavern. Rex has requested the tour to start at the Academy of the Arcane so he can meet with the headmaster. But that meeting will have to wait. However, they do meet a Professor Asgol McGrath, who I picture as Miracle Max from The Princess Bride. He seems very interested not only in the runic stone, but the Mephit attacks as well, and asks them to come back in the next morning for a proper meeting in his office. And the episode ends with the group ending their tour with Rihanna, the half-orc seamstress, as they prepare their looks for their upcoming dinner party. So that is where we are with the antics of Sha'oghol. And as a side note, a completely off subject. So when Diane gives Lindsay's character luck, it sounds like she's pretentiously saying luck tomato. She says luck tomata. And you won't be able to hear it differently now. So you're welcome. Yeah, anyway, what did you think of the episode, Cody?
That was pretty good. I liked Daffodil's rendition of her the conductor song. It's pretty funny.
Also, I didn't get to put it in here, but Daffodil's description of her outfit is very like late 60s, early 70s, very lots of gold and flowers, and I can't wait to see how that plays out. But okay, anyways, we will move on to Realms now. And basically, we are going to take a look at Realms episode 12, which is Far From Home. Let me move this up here just a little bit. All right, so the partially reunited party begins conversations on how to find their friend Keywynn. So basically, you have you have Carrot, Kyriel, Eclipse, and Nafiko, who have all met up. And still missing is Keywynn. So the episode starts off with them having bumped into each other, discussing how to find Keywynn. They try to message her, but her ringer is set to silent thanks to the artificer. Kyriel introduces Nafiko and Eclipse to their new friend Theron, and she uses the word friend in the same context as that person you hated in high school that sends you a request on Facebook. The conversation heats up, as no one can really decide what to do as far as what the best course of action would be. Eventually, however, the party gets a bad case of the splitsies, and it's decided that Nafiko and Eclipse will take the horse along the south side of the mountain, while Kyriel and Carrick will take Theron's cart and the direwolves along the north side. Nafiko and Eclipse travel back the way they came, passing the place where Nafiko and Carrick had camped the night before. They eventually come upon a campsite that appears to have been decorated by Jeffrey Dahmer, with body bits sort of strewn about. The two stood in horror and attempted to gain their composure to investigate if this was the remains of their friend. But after discovering large footprints, they decide this wasn't Keywynn and proceeded to follow those tracks. Carrick and Kyriel followed a path north where Kyriel was shooting flares. But instead of finding anyone, just causes Theron to piss himself. They eventually find a campsite that had hooves in the area, and being the only clue, and around the time that Kyriel agreed to check on Nafiko and Eclipse, she cast Sending to Nafiko to share their findings and to hear hers. Both groups agreed to continue their individual searches. Nafiko and Eclipse, following the tracks, eventually stumble upon a campsite of a Goliath. Eclipse tries to sneak up on the well-worn traveler, but he's able to sense him. And I'd like to think this Goliath is like a big, beautiful, rugged man, like Chris Hemsworth by the fire. And eventually we find out his name is Kavor, which is pretty close to Thor. and he offers them warmth and food. After further conversation, the pair agreed that Kavor was not a threat and asked him more prying questions about their lost friend, as you do. And then the subject of the pet yeti Elskin comes up, Kavor gets very defensive, and it's learned that this is the former companion of his late wife Kendry, I think is how you say that, who was slain by the Artificer, of course. That guy is amazingly talented at individually pissing off an entire continent of people. Kavor vows to help his new friends in their fight against the Artificer. The group slept that night and continued the journey through a hidden pass to meet up with Carrick and Kyriel. However, before that, Kyriel and Carrick get as close as comfortable to the Artificer's tower before camping. It is here that there was a seriously underrated what the fuck moment as it occurs as the direwolves stand upright and begin helping set up camp. It's two of these now discovered werewolves follow the tracks and inform the group that the trail ends at the tower. Once in her hut, though, Kyriel notices that Theron is feeding on a squirrel and has two small fangs, signaling he is presumably a vampire. It was like Kyriel and Carrick were being escorted by the reboot of the Dark Universe. I fully expected Tom Cruise to jump out of that tower at any moment. After all that, though, we do finally get to check in on Keywynn, who is being led through the tower by two constructs that make Oscar look like Wally. She then finds herself alone with the Artificer, who examines her without consent. She objects, but he does find 3 Krek babies growing inside of her, also without consent. Getting very close and personal with Keywynn, he uses a strange device to extract the bugs. Surgery by an unlicensed professional seems to be a theme this week. Either way, she gets a good look at the Artificer, who instantly reminds me of an evil Maurice from Beauty and the Beast. He then sends her to her cell, where she finally meets up or is reunited with her brother Roland. It's Roland, but he's changed, right? So his voice is different, he has different hair, and now he has powers. So I think that just means that the Artificer is like a super dope life coach. But it's not all good, as he explains. The Artificer has done experiments on him to enhance his abilities. And there is a small scuffle between siblings, as you do, and it's apparent that he's not completely there. But the two eventually calm down and rest for the evening, Keywynn not leaving her brother's side. The next morning, the 4 meet up along with their new dreaming Goliath, Kavor. And upon meeting the werewolves, there's actually some animosity, as it is discovered that Kavor is actually a werebear, because of course he is. Eventually, everyone does cool down and focuses on the issues at hand. And they eventually make it to the tower and see that the path is clear. Entering the tower with caution, the group notices dozens of imprisoned people. Kyriel did notice that they were all locked with an arcane lock, vowing to return once they find their friend. In a large room, they see more constructs, more prisoners, all throughout the tower. Eventually, the group saw Keywynn and what looked like her brother, as she had described him, yelling out to them, but there was no sound. Instead, they hear the booming voice of the Artificer, stating that he had been expecting them and that he wants to test his new creation on them. And from there's a burst of blue and purple smoke that fills the room as a figure hovered above the party. He had a long black cloak, red silk shirt, black hair, and the group noticed 2 large fangs. And anyone familiar with Ukodor lore would know that this was Victor, and he was claiming to be excited to meet them. And so on that note, that is that cliffhanger. So our party is reunited, so that is a good piece of information. But on the downside now, they not only have the Artificer to deal with, Pyriel somewhere, somehow. Now they have, I guess they don't know Victor, but the viewer knows Victor. So, and we know what comes along with that. So a lot of threats and a lot of things going on. So that is where we are there. And that will be, I didn't say this on Sha'oghol, but tune in next Wednesday to see how that gets picked up. And I always forget the Pacific times. Chris, what's the Pacific time for?
For Legends?
For Realms.
6:30.
6:30. So that would be 9:30 my time, Eastern. Okay, so I think that is it as far as the recaps. Now, next week we will be covering Vault 42. We'll be covering the first episode of that. So I may have to shrink these down or change the format a little bit, but I do want to get all of the information in. Yes, I coughed. So we will take a 5-minute break. We'll get the guests in here. We will return. Are we doing a mid show? I think we did a mid show last time, so we will do it this time as well. Go ahead and enter a raffle for the mid show giveaway, and then we will be back with our guests, Eddie and April.